All right, hello everybody. This is Nicholas Bruno, also known as Punt and Wine. I'm here today with Scott. We're going to continue with the Coach Punt series, and today, so we're looking at this list. You were telling me it's based off of House of Mana's list, and you went up to the fourth cavern, and you put the Radiant Fountain in the sideboard. Is what you were saying?
Yeah, just because I don't feel like there's been that much aggro outside of like hammer and like
Okay.
the occasional burn, and I feel like right now cavern is a lot more important in the meta.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's pretty much the same. I really like the sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I
No, it's
think I
definitely a very
also
clean list.
yeah, and then I listened to Fran. He advocated for the 10th bounce, so
Mm-hmm.
I took out the Castle Garenbrig for the 10th bounce. Even though I really like Castle,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's so many games you're praying for that bounce top deck. So I just decided to also move that.
Yeah. I noticed that you're doing four sanctuary and one turf with I don't see any like reason for like a white splash or anything. I think it's just like a little minor thing, but I think you might want the second turf just because um like the way things will go, you will naturally sometimes draw them,
Hmm.
and having like just a mixture of the red and white is sometimes useful for activating Slayers or Sunhome. Uh,
Yeah.
Obviously Sanctuary works nicely with like Valakut as far as like hasting and stuff. Um, but you know, I don't know. In my experience, like it's just there can be situations where like you have the one turf like either in play or in hand, and you want the turf for some wild multi amulet combo turn, and so that would make you maybe want to have the second turf in the deck. But otherwise, yeah, I think the list uh, is really clean, and that's a really marginal thing.
Yeah, no, I think just because I'm always putting all these lists together, I didn't really
Mm-hmm.
think about it. But yeah, it's using another gruel it makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, I really do like just clean lists. I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. Um, Pretty standard sideboard right now. Even though three dismembers felt a little weird at first, it has been actually really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And like Yogg is a really hard matchup, and somehow I've been winning a lot of
Mm-hmm.
them. I think that's probably on the other pilots, to be honest, but it's been working for MTGO.
Yeah. So what would you say your goals are as far as what you want to get out of the tutoring, and as far as like um, as today, what do you want to work on today?
So probably a lot of looking at openings because
Mm-hmm.
I think looking at sometimes some of your videos or even some of the tutoring where I was like, I think I might have kept that hand, and like, it's a little bit meh. So I think that's really important because sometimes you can just see the obvious lines and the deck just comes together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think also, since I know we're going to have a decent amount of time, I think some of these longer games against four color and blue white, I think my decision making starts to get a lot less tight. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm tutoring for like maybe not the right lands in the right scenarios. Like yesterday, I played against four color and blue white, and as the game started to sort of drag, the game just started slipping, and like I wasn't managing my time well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Admittedly, I also was playing the games on the sofa, so I wasn't using a mouse and
Gotcha.
to get through to get through all that clicking. So that really like
Right.
hurt me badly with
Trackpad
time.
is Yeah, no, I've definitely run into that. There was a time where I was like playing elves with like a trackpad one time, and so I could definitely know how
Yeah,
that could become a tricky thing.
yeah, I played blue white on a trackpad, and like it ate up so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because sometimes I'm not in a scenario where I can use my mouse.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean those are matchups that very often like time management becomes a concern, especially if it goes to game three. So for both
Yeah.
players. Um, so yeah, I think we could definitely take a look at that. So you had openings. Did you have like did you want to go through some of your games and look at the openings from some games? Do you want to do we can open like just like a single player and just look at some different openings. We can, you know,
So I wasn't sure what, since I know we have like a decent amount of time. I don't know whether to go through like a league.
okay.
Um,
If that's what you want to do, it's your time to do with like as you choose. I know in the past for me, I found like backseating a league. You know, there is like a lot of like lost time, but I'm totally if that's what you want to do.
no, no, no,
Uh,
no. I meant like leagues that I had.
gotcha.
Like,
Yeah, let's maybe sure. Let's go through uh, the replays.
yeah,
So
that's what I mean.
yeah.
Like I have this one league last week. I
Okay.
went 4-1, but I think in almost every game I felt like I made a bunch of big mistakes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I felt like I feel like the deck sort of dragged me to the win
Mm-hmm.
more than like tight playing.
Right.
Um, and then maybe after that league, looking through that 4C control and blue white.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that sounds great. If you want to pull up, the first game of that league, we could take a look.
okay. Uh, so my first match was against Mistaken.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I was like, oh, and he's like one of the few people who beat me in the mirror.
Yeah.
I've
So
had a lot of good luck in the mirror.
go ahead and just hit that middle button a few times till we get to see opening hand. I noticed that you have stops put in on every step. Um, I know, like you were talking about time management. I usually go with a configuration where um, like I generally don't leave a stop on my own upkeep, on my own draw
Mm-hmm.
step, on my own beginning of combat. I don't have a stop on my damage or my end combat or my end step. I don't have a stop on my opponent's uh, like upkeep, draw, main phase, like damage, end combat. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just like I think that you can put the stops in kind of on the fly when you are. I mean, like, so for things like your opponent's upkeep or draw step, like, if you are, like, planning to besage you a land during your opponent's draw step, you know, you're going to know you have that besage in hand, and you could throw that stop in on the draw step mid game. Um, but, like,
Hmm.
otherwise, you're just always, having to click through your opponent's upkeep, having to click through your opponent's draw step
Yeah.
in like a control matchup. It's like a little thing, but those little bits of time can add up over time, and especially like if I mean control matchups, especially right, like we talked about, they come down to time management,
Yeah.
right? And every moment of time you're spending doing the little mechanical things of MTGO is going to be time that you're not spending getting to like think about important decisions, to the point where game 3 you might be having to do just everything as fast as you can on the fly without even really having that opportunity to stop and think, which is not a position you want to be in.
Yeah. I think all of this is from like when I was playing John and Death
Mm-hmm.
Shadow and everything like that. Where, but I think
Mm-hmm.
with this deck, it's not. You're not doing some crazy end of turn instant speed things for the most part.
Oh yeah, I set up my configuration based on the deck I'm playing, and I think with this deck, there's a lot to mechanically execute with the deck, and just decreasing the amount of sort of extraneous clicks you have to make while executing the deck can be um, like a big part of um, just sort of uh, like simplifying things, I guess.
All right. Well, I'll clean this up
Yeah, yeah.
for when I do it. That'll save me a lot of time.
Yeah, so let's look at the hand then. So looking at this hand now, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm gonna pray for a bounce land. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like the Colossus in the opener, but
Mm-hmm.
it's got Dryad, it's got a Saga, it's got Amulet, it's got the threat. So I'm hoping in a few turns, if I can just draw that bounce, I can get a really quick Titan,
Right. So,
and I know
are
I'm in the
we
mirror.
currently on the play or on the draw?
I don't know.
I probably should show game log.
Let's go.
So we're on the draw. So let's maybe think about how this hand sequences out in the event we don't draw a bounce land. So
Mm.
let's say we draw any number of you know non-bounce lands. Maybe like one or two non-bounce lands, but we don't draw a bounce land. So we're probably going first turn Saga Amulet, second turn another land, and then turn three. If we have to grab map,
Yeah.
we're not even able to crack map and play Dryad in the same turn. So potentially we could maybe turn three play Dryad. If we have two other lands, I guess we could play Dryad, play a land, and go into turn four with three lands starting in play. But even in that place, we're not able to crack map, get the bounce land, play it twice, and play the Titan. Now, if we've got like a if we do draw like a Grazer and a land, or a Nazuza and a land, and a Pact and a land, we've got like a turn four here. But to get a turn three, we really need to draw a bounce land. It seems I understand the appeal of this hand, and I can see
Mm.
it working out. Obviously, if we draw a bounce land, we're gonna feel really great. Um, but I think we can also feel really great from drawing a great six, right?
Yeah.
Or even a great five, right? There's
Hmm.
there's I think there's a lot of great sixes and great fives. Especially, I mean, I may be a little biased here because, like, in the dark, I might keep this hand, but I think if I see Mistaken, I'm expecting a mirror.
Yeah.
Um, and on the draw, I really want to be going pretty quick in the mirror, right?
Yeah, I think maybe I just saw Saga and Amulet and a
Yeah.
Dryad and a threat, and I was like, ooh, like this
Yeah.
could go really well or really bad.
Right,
And
right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I will see hands a lot of times where you have you have all the pieces here, right? So it makes sense as to why you would want to keep this hand because it just has all the pieces. I just think that the sequencing of it is I mean, other than the bounce lane, the sequencing of it is just a little bit awkward, and then on top of that, that like you can always get a good six, right? Like we can always
yeah,
get a good five, right? Like there's a chance of drawing a bounce land. There's also a chance of just drawing a great 6 card hand or drawing a great 5 card hand.
okay. So like you're saying if this were like a six, this would
Mhm.
probably be keepable.
Yeah, I
But like
think
as
if
a
this was a,
seven,
I think if this was a six, I would keep it and probably just bottom the
bottom the
Colossus.
Colossus, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and you know what? I didn't watch the replay of this, but I think in the first game especially,
Mm-hmm.
because Mistaken has such a good start, I end up getting real tripped up, and I'm like, oh god, how do I cobble this up to like work? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to die. So I think that's almost exactly the scenario that you're describing that happens. I think things get really awkward with the sequencing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's see if you I don't know if you kept this hand. If you did, you can just hit play. If not,
I'm
just
pretty
hit
sure
the.
I kept this hand.
Okay, then just hit
I just
play.
press this.
Yeah.
How do I pause it?
You just click the same button you did to play. We don't. I'll let you know if we need. I don't think we need to pause yet.
Okay.
You know, I think so far there hasn't been really any relevant new decisions or data.
Yeah. Piece the Viger out. Then he does that, and I'm like, oh crap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
I
draw the
mean,
blast.
if he has a turn 3 kill, there's not
No.
really much that can be
No. And then I was
done.
like, well, I guess it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's not like we could have mulled our way out of beating a turn 3 kill unless we like got really
I'm on
lucky
the
and
play.
drew the turn 2 kill or something.
Also a bad sign.
So yeah, okay. I don't think I think we all believe that
Yeah.
Mistaken knows how to
Yep. I think I
kill
scoop it
us.
up. I don't want to play the whole thing. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
well, I guess I'm super dead here.
yeah. So we can go ahead and look at. Oh, you concede, yeah.
Yeah, I can see it
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I think we could assume that they're gonna grab a second Titan, they're gonna haste both of them, and we're gonna be
Mm-hmm.
dead. Yeah,
I
I
guess I
mean,
just
yeah, I mean,
click
and
off
with the
everything.
fact that they had Azusa, we know for a fact that they don't have any of the important lands stuck in their hand because if they did, they could have just played the important land rather than you
Yeah,
know.
but I mean, like, I ended up drawing the Talaria, but it would have been like so slow to like cobble this up
Right,
because then I would
right.
have had to go for a map and everything like that.
Like even, I mean, the thing is, like, even if we didn't die this turn, I don't think we're doing much next turn unless we specifically draw the bounce land. So
Yeah, no. So it was it was looking like I maybe should have gone for six and
yeah,
fell into
yeah.
the trap of seeing two
Mm-hmm.
amulets.
Yeah. No, I think it's hard to throw away those two amulet hands. I think it's especially important to remember that when you're on 7 card hands, if you're feeling kind of like marginal about your 7 card hand, you can pretty safely go to 6 with this deck because you can almost always find something in a hand that you can bottom. And honestly, there's a lot of times you can go to 5 and the deck can still function pretty well. It could because things like, bounce lands can sort of like get you out of a mulligan almost just by being sort of a virtual 2 cards. So, like, if you got a 5 card hand, but that card has land, bounce land, amulet, dryad, like you're golden, right? Like it doesn't matter that you're
Yeah,
on 5 cards. So
and the Colossus is so bad in the opener that like probably
right.
guess I should have multi six.
Or even like Saga, Bounce Land, Amulet in a 5 card hand, it almost doesn't matter what the remaining,
Yeah.
cards are. It's pretty much gonna be a keep. So yeah, okay, so let's look at game 2 then. Wait, go ahead and pause. Uh, So we're on the play this time. You keep this hand on the play. So can we do a right click and view sideboard? Um, so I'm seeing you cut 2 explorers, you cut 3 caverns, and a bog. And I guess you brought in the 3 dismembers and the 3 force of vigors.
I think I'm playing two force. So it's like two force and I'm guessing actually three dismembers.
Uh, but I'm seeing is the bog does the bog start in the sideboard?
No, the bog is in my main.
Okay, can we go over to the deck list really quick just so we can see
Yeah,
it?
I think I replaced it with a what's it called? A radiant fountain, so I wouldn't have a tap land coming in.
Okay, but uh isn't Cavern just better than Radiant Fountain in this matchup?
Yes, it is. And now that I'm looking, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
I think I autopilot so much with that I was just like, I don't want that tap land coming in.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, you're completely right.
I'm also just concerned about the amount of caverns you're cutting because that's a lot of your sort of like
Yeah, color
untapped
choices.
untapped turn one green sources. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe two caverns. I could see it's not like exactly the most exciting cavern matchup, but three of them seems like maybe a little excessive.
Oh, I remember
Um,
what it is now. I brought in two Beseju.
mm,
So I think I cut like two Cavern for two
mm-hmm,
Beseju. I cut this for a Radiant Fountain.
mm-hmm.
Um, Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, why not just cut
Can
something
we
else
just can
instead of
we
the
just
Radiant
go over
Fountain?
to the deck list so we can just see
Sure.
specifically what the deck list because it looks like you brought in all the dismembers. Just hit the X. It won't the X on this. Yeah, that'll it should leave the other window open. So it looks like you brought in three dismembers, two force, two Beseju, and Radiant Fountain. So that's
Yeah.
you brought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards, and now can we go
Mhm.
back over to the game? One, two. Is this were you maybe working off of a slightly different list at this
It might be
time?
like a card different or something like that.
Because I'm seeing only 6 cards that you took out.
Hmm. It's possible
So
there's like one or two cards different.
right, so possibly you were switching in some Besejus
Yeah.
and some Dismembers, probably some amount of forces. Um, which makes sense. I I think probably what I would say is be careful about how many caverns you're cutting because you do want to keep up that like turn one green source count. If you
Yeah,
are
for
bringing in
sure.
Besejus, like if you're bringing in two Besejus and cutting 3 caverns, that's fine. But like obviously don't bring in a Radiant Fountain in a matchup like this. It's possible this 75 that you're playing right now maybe doesn't have the Radiant Fountain. Um, yeah. Um, other than that, I think this is fine. Dismember is a card I go back and forth on in this matchup. I think it kills Dryad, which is good, so it's probably fine. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd want all three of them though. Just because like I don't really think you want a hand with like two dismembers in it, if that makes
No.
sense.
No, maybe I'll go down to two. I think
Yeah.
I've had so many moments where my opponent goes for the Valakut and I just dismember in response, and that's won me so many games in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
No,
that's just
yeah, for sure. And also like you can block a Titan with like an Azusa or a Dryad or whatever, and then dismember it,
yeah.
and that can be nice. And the fact that it's only like 1 mana, it definitely has uses. I'm not trying to like deny that it's something you should bring in. Just like uh, 3 seems excessive for a matchup that isn't like Yogg or
Yeah,
Hammer or something
I
like.
think probably thinking about it, I'll probably go with two.
Mhm. Okay, so let's look at the hand. So looking at this hand now, what do you feel about this hand?
I think the mirrors tend to be kind of mopey
Mm-hmm.
because of Boseju's and forces, so I
Mm-hmm.
decided to keep this.
I
I
I like
Yeah,
this as a keep. Yeah, I think
yeah,
Force of Vigor is probably one of the most impactful cards in the mirror match.
yeah,
Um, and while this is probably not a hand where I'd like lead on Saga on one, just because I think like and I've said this. I think if you said you watched the previous coaching video, but like when you're sort of low on resources, Saga on
Mm-hmm.
1 can be kind of bad because you usually want to use the mana from Saga the turn you get like the amulet, and I don't think turn 3 is really the moment we're making moves, we're making things
No.
happen. But I think this hand is a good keep because I think we're going to be able to do a whole lot to slow down our opponent, and we have quite a few pieces to cobble some things together ourselves, depending on our draw step. So I like this hand a lot actually for the mirror.
Yeah. I feel like I didn't play the Saga first, but who knows? Maybe looking at the replay,
Yeah,
I did. So.
let's go ahead and hit play and see how it goes. So yeah, I like the lead on the forest. I think that's heads up. Um,
Oh man, I thought I was playing. Looking at it, I think I played Cavern, but
well, you got the
Explorer. Oh yeah,
explorer.
that's right.
Yeah, so I think uh, yeah, I think your play was fine. Um, you could have like caverned into explorer to play around like
Yeah.
force on just the saga, but I'd be really surprised if they forced in response to just like that saga trigger, and if they did, that sort of is kind of good for you because it means the dryad won't be picked up with whatever force is going on or whatever. Um, yeah, so
I think I
dismembering
did
the
that.
Azusa there makes sense to me.
Yeah, I wanted to slow him down, and then he did that, and I was salivating.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think I skipped
I
that. That
like
was
this. I like using the Dryad for
yeah.
that, and then you're set up for Titan. Yeah, I like all your plays this game. I think you played this game great.
I think he scoops it up pretty soon.
Um, I don't necessarily like the you put in the grazer
Yeah.
there. I think I would have just gone ahead and put like in bounce land and played the Titan and kept the grazer in hand. Um, like so on this Titan, you're basically locked into. You're gonna haste this Titan,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, like then you're probably maybe putting in the Grazer's fine because you're basically locked into. You're gonna haste this Titan, and then probably getting something like Beseju plus bounce land, or potentially you could get like Talaria West plus something if you're just like not afraid of them comboing, but maybe afraid of them just like beast withining the Titan. It's all sort of very marginal at that point. I mean, you're just so far ahead and they're conceding, so I
I
don't think
think
it's worth
knowing
analyzing too deeply.
no, I think knowing me, I'd probably go Beseju just to play it safe.
Yeah, I think if you do get Beseju, you'd probably want to Beseju the bounce land immediately because
Oh.
um, I think Beast Within on Primeval Titan is just basically one of the only ways you lose this game from here.
Hmm. Okay.
So if you got Beseju bounce land, yeah, I would just immediately. Um, so okay, something to think about. If we had left the Grazer in hand, we could haste the Titan, attack, get Beseju plus Talaria West with a Simic Growth Chamber in our hand, use the Beseju to play the Grazer, use the Simic Growth Chamber in our hand to put the Beseju into our hand,
Yeah.
and then we don't have to get a bounce land on the attack. We can potentially have like a Talaria West. So like Nightmare
Oh.
scenario, our opponent like double dismembers our Titan or Beast withins it. Then you have a Talaria West, so all you really need to draw is a bounce land at that point to be back in the game. Um,
Gotcha.
yeah, I mean, at points when you're very, very, very far ahead, you got to get that mindset of like, what is the 1% chance or 0.1% chance that I lose this game, and how do I play around that without you also don't want to like play yourself and open a new avenue for you to lose because of the plays you make, but
Yeah.
but looking for just those extremely marginal corner case ways that you could ever possibly lose the game.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. With I like that line with the what's it called, with the Teleria,
Mm-hmm.
where I could have really buried him more or get myself out of emergency.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
oh,
think I've said this before, but like there's a pretty good heuristic I have, which is if you have a amulet in play, a grazer in your hand is just as good as the grazer in play, if not better.
yeah,
So just like you know, don't not necessarily always playing out grazers unless like you have a particular reason to when you've got an amulet in play.
yeah. I don't think I remember game three being here. I think he just buries me.
Okay, so just hit the middle button until we see the opening hand. So we're on the draw here. We should keep clicking it until we see the opening hand. Okay.
So I hate this hand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have a Beseju that I would like to possibly use, but it's not going to do much here.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
find this hand pretty similar to our hand game one of like if we draw a bounce
oh wow.
land, this hand is amazing, right? And
Yeah, with the
then
Grace Runner.
if we don't draw a bounce land, this hand does nothing. It does dismember to like slow down a little. It does Beseju to slow down a little, but until we draw a bounce land, this hand's doing nothing, and we don't even have that sort of like saga being the possibility for a slow bounce land via map. So
Yeah, I'm pretty certain I throw this back.
okay, so let's hit that middle button rather than the play, so we can just look at the next hand. Okay, what do you feel about this hand?
It doesn't. I think without like a Grazer or an Amulet and the Colossus on top of it, I think this hand kind of sucks too.
Yeah, I think this hand sucks. Yeah, it's way, way too slow. It's got the Besejus, but you know, uh, just wildly too slow. So I think yeah.
Hope I don't keep this. I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, this is horrible. Oh God, do I keep this? Oh wow, I do. Yeah, no, this
Yeah,
is a terrible hand.
yeah. I think any 5 card hand with like an amulet or like a force of vigor is going to be have a better chance than this hand. I mean, I also wouldn't bottom the Beseju here. I'd probably bottom like the map because we need a non-bounce land to be able to play with the bounce lands, and if we're and so if we need sort of a Beseju that we can play and like keep in play to be able to even use the other Beseju to like blow something up. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, I really kept this? Because I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, this is a horrible hand.
yeah, it just so you can go ahead and hit play, but I just don't really think this hand does anything.
No,
Oh
I think,
oh, you think you bought it? You ended up buying the Sanctuary. Yeah,
yeah, I think I did.
yeah. I think I would bottom map over Sanctuary as well because at this point you're basically wanting the map to be a bounce land anyway. So
Yeah, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, I can't just hit this.
you can hit just the play button now. So let's see.
Yeah, he does that. I don't think I'm feeling very good about this. I think I
Mm-hmm.
know the game is over.
Yeah.
I tank on that for a while because I'm like, I don't know what to get. I think it's over. Um, and then he gets another force, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, does he have the threat?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were probably thinking to yourself the only way to win this game is if he just doesn't have the threat, and he did,
Yeah,
and
and he
so
does.
it's over, yeah. I mean, I don't think really any of the decisions of that game sort of mattered after the the mulligan because there was just
Hmm.
nothing you could do with that hand because the hand really couldn't do anything, you
No,
know.
the hand was way too mopey. I think without at least a razor or something, it just should have absolutely been thrown back.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's good that you at least recognize that in hindsight, but yeah. It'd be one thing if you, like, were looking at the hand and been like, still thinking it's a keep, but yeah.
No, I'm like really
Yeah,
surprised I kept it looking back
yeah,
on it.
yeah. So, uh,
Yeah, so I
so
started
yeah.
off this day with a loss. So I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I think we should maybe mention, like, I do think there was an interesting thing with the bottoming as well.
Hmm.
Um, I was really surprised that, like, because it you sort of like went between two cards and you never really looked at the expedition map as far as one of the cards bottom, and I think
Yeah.
to me expedition map is a card I bottom pretty often if it's in my hand, unless
Huh.
like the hand needs a bounce land
Yeah.
and like map is the bounce land of the hand. But other than that, it's like, spending 3 mana to put a land into your hand is not like particularly a great effect. I'd mostly rather have any other land, or if I'm good on lands, have another spell. You know.
Oh, okay, that's something I'll keep in mind. I don't know if I do throw naps back enough. So
Yeah, I mean, if the hand like needs lands, obviously, like if you're short on lands, then bottoming a spell over a map makes sense. But I don't know if there's really a land that I don't think I would ever really bottom any land over map unless you're specifically in the scenario that you really want a particular card off map, like, oh, I'm against control, I really want a Cavern of Souls, or like this
gotcha.
hand really wants a bounce land, or I'm against Living End, I'm gonna grab a Bajuka Bog
The
with
Bob. Yeah.
this.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think in the
yeah,
future, unless I'm specifically looking for something immediately.
yeah. Then map is just a bad version of basic
The
forest. I don't
land.
know. You'd rather just have basic forest.
That makes a ton of sense. I'm trying to remember. Is this Hammer that I'm playing against? This
Do
button.
the middle button until we see the opener.
Yeah, I
Can you
mean,
can you do a right click and view sideboard just so that I know that we're on game one here? I just want to see
gotcha.
what the
Yeah, let's
sideboard
take
is.
it.
Yeah, so where it looks like we're on. So I'm assuming right now we probably. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like last time you just cut the two caverns for two Besagers.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just grabbed a little like snip of this sideboard so that I have it for when we're double checking sideboard decisions in the
Makes sense.
future. So yeah, okay. So obviously, I don't think we need to talk about this hand, and I'm guessing we probably don't even need to talk about this game too much. But you can go
I
ahead
think
and
I
take it.
slam dunked on him this first game. I
Yeah,
think it's the second game where there's a scenario where I like
yeah.
really messed up if
I
I
mean, you can
remember it.
hit play, and we can watch you destroy them and get to see what we're up against at least.
But I'm
Opponent
also alive
mulligans
for
to
one.
5.
I don't care about the tax.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. They're very dead next turn. I mean, unless the worst case scenario would be like, surprise, I'm blue white affinity, here's a portable hole, but You're
I mean,
absolutely right to
even if it
say.
has the horrible hole, I mean, like, I still have
You'd still have the
Azusa
second
and
amulet.
Dryad. It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't think I need to play around. If he had an ink moth, maybe that would be a little bit different, but he doesn't.
Yeah. Okay, small thing here.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, like, Solitude is not a likely card for us to be playing against. Nobody really plays Solitude
No.
in Hammer. But I think, generally speaking, in a situation like this, we'd rather lead on the Dryad. If you have Dryad and Azusa and two amulets, we'd rather do
Mm.
the Dryad first, then the Azusa.
Yeah.
Because if the Azusa gets Solituded, then if we play the Dryad, we wouldn't get to have
You won't
another
play
land
anything.
drop,
Ah.
because we'd already have used an additional land drop. And but if the Dryad gets Solituded after, so like let's say we played the Dryad, we now have 1 mana floating. We
Yeah.
play the Celestia Sanctuary, that puts us up to 5 mana while they Solitude the Dryad. We then play the Azusa for 3. We still have 1 additional land drop. We can play the Sanctuary and play the Titan.
Okay. I mean, that'll be good for like corner cases for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, probably not a like important thing here for this particular game, but just as like a matter of sort of form against a tapped out opponent, when Solitude is really the main consideration, I
Yeah.
think playing the Dryad before the Azusa is like the correct sequencing.
I'll absolutely remember that. Game two. I don't remember exactly what happens. I remember this Hushbringer that makes my life complicated, and like,
Yeah, let's hit the middle button just so I can see the opening hand. And we'll also let's right click in the view of the sideboard.
so I think I take out
So you took out all 4 explorers. You took out 2 caverns
an a fog, I think.
and a bog. You brought in 3 dismembers, two
No, I
force
brought in two dismembers,
or 2 dismembers.
an
Uh,
EE, and
two.
two forces.
You brought in 2 dismember, 2 forces, an EE, and 2 besages.
Yeah.
I think I think against Hammer, I'm down for the third dismember if we can find room for it.
Yeah, I've been waffling about that. I think I have an attachment to
Uh-huh.
Colossus, so I don't know if I should just be cutting the Colossus for the dismember here.
Right. I mean, we do have a lot of things we're bringing in. Um, Sorry, can you pull up the list again? And I want to grab uh, a separate thing so we don't have to go back and forth again.
Sure. Let's see.
Let
I think
me just
in that list I was playing the Radiant Fountain instead of the Cavern.
Can you shrink your main deck a little so I can see all the lands?
I'm gonna shrink it.
So right next to where it says apply filters, so you see House of Mana Amulet Titan. If you read House of Mana Amulet Titan in blue and move your eye to the right, and you see apply filters, and then just to the right of that, there's sort of like a triangle thing that you can scroll the size with.
Yeah. Is that okay?
Just like so that I can see. Actually, I want you to make it smaller so that I can see
Oh, gotcha.
all the cards in the deck, and like drag the sideboard just so that I can see it all at once. And I'm gonna grab a picture of it so that I can.
Yeah.
Just... Okay, so if you want to just go back to the game, then. So yeah, looking at the list you have, I guess there isn't a huge amount of room for us to yeah, I think so you're currently on 33 lands. You go down to 32 to bring in those cards. I think on
Hmm.
the draw especially, I'd be okay trimming another land. So maybe uh I mean the things I'm looking at as far as things you could trim, I'd maybe look at like the 10th bounce land. The reason I'm saying that is
Oh, really?
because um in this matchup, our sagas are pretty likely to go off, which means we often have access for map into bounce land with all four sagas in the deck. Where like I think the 10th bounce land is really good with like people interacting with our sagas, or if we're siding out sagas or maps in some amount. But in this matchup where like all the sagas or maps are in, we could maybe look at trimming the 10th bounce land. We could maybe look at trimming the second Talaria West, though that's a little bit shaky in this list since we're a little bit threat light.
Yeah.
Um, I just think Dismember's quite good, especially on the draw, and I think we have
Yeah.
a lot of lands. Um, I could even see, you said we have a Radiant Fountain. I could even see trimming the Radiant Fountain. I mean, we could end up losing to
Oh,
Cauldra Beats, but like I feel like most of the time the damage from these decks comes from like in like increments of 10, and it's not really about our life total and like the little marginal 2 life gains. it's
yeah. No,
more
not
about
usually.
it's more about we're usually either like dead or at like 9. Like uh it's not like I think the Radiant Fountain's all that particularly important. I think it's good, but I don't know. Dismember's a good card. I might feel differently on the play than on the draw, but like on the draw, I think you're more likely to be able to like trim a land, you know, especially in a matchup
Yeah.
like this where they're not really interacting with your lands unless they like march on
Yeah.
a saga.
Okay. I can keep that in mind.
Yeah, so anyway, I think this hand's a pretty obvious mole, so let's hit the middle button and see what you're
I hope it
facing.
is. I don't think I would keep it just for EE. I might have thought about it, but I was like, no, I can't do that, especially on the draw.
Yeah, I don't think. Hopefully, let's see. Click it. You might have to click again.
Oh, okay. Thank God I didn't keep that.
Yeah,
This is much better.
right. So looking at this right now, what are you feeling like the bottom is in this hand?
Um, I think I feel like I like Razor
Mm-hmm.
because God forbid they have an ink moth and a hammer that can buy me a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Dryad, and I have the force in case I need to pitch, so I have to imagine I throw back one of the Simics.
I like that reasoning. Yeah. So I agree. You want all your green cards because you want a ramp piece and you want a green card to pitch. Obviously, Saga is untouchable, so it's really just between Simic and Forest at that point. And I think that if you kept the if you threw back the Forest, then you probably don't
Yeah,
have a land drop on turn 2, which is not a position you want to be in. So I think, yeah, throwing back a Simic makes sense to me.
pretty
Um,
sure it's 5D. I guess I
okay,
press that screen.
go ahead and hit play. Yeah. Oh, so you did throw back
Oh
the.
God,
Yeah. So
it's so funny looking back on it. I'm like, no, I would absolutely do that.
well, it did end up working out not too bad. So
It did, but looking back on it, I would definitely throw back the Simic.
yeah,
And they do this, and I'm like, ah, oh, yeah, it
yeah.
makes things awkward.
Certainly can be awkward. I think we're in a pretty good position though. So um,
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I could have had my Dryad out already, though,
uh,
and like Razor.
I don't like that because then you don't have force pitch available, and
Oh yeah, that might have been my logic. I might have kept that because of that. And then I draw this, And I think at some point I'm like, oh wait, the Hushbringer, like I'll have no lands and I would die. Um,
Oh, also Hushbringer stops Grazer from working, so you couldn't have even had the Dryad in play because Hushbringer stops Grazer. Uh, yeah. So I think in a little maybe missequence there, we should have put the Dryad in play, but maybe didn't realize that uh, the Grazer wasn't going to work with the Hushbringer. Was maybe
I think that might have been what happened.
yeah.
Um, and then for a while, I didn't even like think about transmuting this for an
Mm-hmm.
EE. And I don't know if I think they top deck really bad or something like that. But like
Mm-hmm.
for a while, I'm just like, well, what am I going to do to get this? What would I do to get a Titan out if I got a Summoner's Pack? Because
Because you wouldn't even be able to pay for the
I won't be
pack.
able to pay for it. I'll be dead,
Yeah.
and I can't tutor up the lands, so I
Right.
can't go for a turn one kill.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is with playing out this Grazer. Now we've kind of also like messed up our sequencing a little. Whereas like if we had played out the Dryad, we could have like had a Simic Growth Chamber and
Yeah,
like bounced the Saga to hand, and then we'd be getting like Saga tokens, and then we'd be uh having more lands in play for Titan, being able to Titan. So like just like a lot better position overall. But like it happens, like uh, it. I think it's an easy interaction to miss because you look at Huckspringer and you go like, "Oh, my Titans," that's what it's for. But then
yeah.
like, you know, uh,
I think that might have been what happened. Where I was like,
yeah,
all right, I'll just sequence Razor, and then I'll get the Dryad
yeah,
out.
yeah. Just
Also focusing on this Ink Moth, but
I I I guarantee you that I have also forgotten that Huckspringer hits Grazer in a game in the past. I know I have done that. Um, so yeah, it's just something to remember going forward. And I think this is like you make mistakes, but like probably not one you're gonna make again. um, you know, is
hopefully
at
not.
least the goal is just try and learn from that and be like, okay, don't want to do that one again because that went
Yeah.
really bad. Okay, let's hit play. I so what was the thought process behind not blocking the paladin there?
I don't know. I don't know if that was a misclick or what I did because I
Gotcha.
didn't want to take the damage.
Yeah,
So I think it might have just been a misclick or something.
gotcha.
I don't know if I end up wasting a bunch of time here and then realizing I can't do plays yet. Like I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
And then I think here I'm just like, well, crap, I have nothing to pitch the force to. So like, and then
Yeah.
I see that and I'm like, if they have a hammer, I'm dead.
Yeah. So what was the thought? Can we pause? What was the thought process behind blocking the Hushbringer with the Grazer rather than the second Pure Steel?
Honestly, I don't know there.
Okay.
Oh. I it really wouldn't have even mattered at that point. I think I was like, well, if I equip the hammer, then they gain life, and then I'm like totally out of lethal range, which doesn't make sense because I'd be dead anyway.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
I think that was the fault logic, but it wouldn't have mattered because I'd be dead.
Sure.
But they're beating me down, so that one life can make a difference.
Okay. Uh,
I think that was a mistake.
yeah. So can you talk about what you should have done that turn there?
Yeah, I think that turn I should have tapped for Teleria, Simic. Um, tutor up for EE
Mm-hmm.
or two, blow this up. I've got at least. What do they have left if I blow that up? We've got this and this. I'm pretty dead still if they get a hammer.
So you EE. So let's talk about
Two.
you have a Talaria West in play at the start of the turn.
Yeah.
You have 2 land drops and you have 3 amulets. So how much mana can you produce this turn?
2, 4, 6, 12.
Plus the Talaria West.
Yeah.
So how much?
A massive amount. Let's see. I can do that. 2, 4, 6, 12, 13. So what are we looking at? 13?
Okay. And then Talaria West into EE on 2 into blowing EE on 2 costs how much mana?
Tutoring out for 3, 4, 5, 6. Was that 7 mana?
7 mana. So
Ah,
if you blow an EE on 2, you have how much left over?
I've got the 6 left over.
So what does that mean the turn should look like?
Means that they should be in a super bad position. What would I do? I think if they lose all their pieces, then they've got what? A giver and a sentinel, and I've got a force of vigor. So I could really just pretty much destroy this whole board.
So let me ask you something. You have 6 mana. You have a Summoner's Pact in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Any thought of what that might represent?
Wait, what?
You have 6 mana. You have a Summoner's Pact in hand.
Yeah, getting the. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I could just chain a bunch of Titans and just spin right here.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
turn should be, uh, we can play. We can Simic Growth Chamber. We can get EE. We can play it on 2. We can blow it. We can play a Titan. We can
Get the
chain
other
it in.
Talaria
Yeah.
double.
Get a second Titan. Haste both of them. Swing. Just super dead. Even if they had like some answer for one of the Titans, they're still super dead. They don't have blue mana, so we don't have to play around Spell Pierce. Even if they, I don't know, I don't even know what they possibly could have. Yeah, so they're just very 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 dead.
They are, and I think I got sub-tunnel division on Hushbringer.
Mm-hmm.
That I think I missed this for way too long,
Mm-hmm.
and I really just got fortunate that they didn't draw well.
Yeah.
Because I don't think my decision making this game was particularly great, and there were a lot of mistakes. And this is kind of where I feel like the deck sort of just kind of dragged me into the victory here, because I was like, oh, you have all this and this.
Yeah.
So I wasn't particularly proud of like winning this game. So I was like, oh, that was really sloppy.
Yeah, so I think what we gotta do here is I think one of the things I'm seeing is maybe uh like we should talk about like combo turns, like how you approach when you have 3 amulets in play
Yeah.
or 2 amulets, how you should approach the the figuring out what you can do with the combo turn. And usually my approach is the first thing I do is I just count the maximum amount of mana that I can produce in the turn. So I just start in mind with that maximum amount of mana. And I start counting down with things that I want to do that turn, right? So it's like I want to transmute, I want to play an EE on 2, I want to blow an EE on 2, I want to play a Titan. Then after that, once you've sort of got sort of the rough draft version in your head of make this match mana do these things, then the next things that I consider are I double check things as far as colors of mana, right? Because sometimes producing the most mana possible doesn't always produce the exact colors that you want. So, for
Yeah.
example, let's say all the lands in our hand were Celestia Sanctuaries. We could produce 13 mana total, but
Yeah.
we couldn't produce 13 mana while also producing 2 blue mana. And so, while producing 2 blue mana, the maximum amount of mana we could produce with this hand, with just starting with the Talaria West in hand, would be 12, because we'd once have to tap his Celestia Sanctuary for blue if all of the bounce lands were Celestia Sanctuaries. So I would say first count the maximum amount of mana that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and then double check colors. And then what I would do is I would think about, if you have an excess of mana, think about ways in which, like, let's say you have more mana that you can produce than, like, the things that want to do require. Then that's where you start to think about, well, are there small sequencing advantages or other things that I can do while still doing everything I want to do? For example, can I get more non-bounce lands into play? Or can I haste off of a Valakut rather than a Boros Garrison in certain scenarios, right? I'm not saying like this
Yeah.
scenario, I'm saying in general. So like I would say, I think when you're trying to break down complicated turns, when you're trying to break down how to do the math in a complicated turn, I think step 1 is count the mana. Step 2 is double check the colors. Step 3 is look for the smaller optimizations. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's just funny looking back and I'm like, oh yeah, no, could have swung for lethal and they're super dead.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think even at here, I'm looking at the thread and I was like, I might have been tunnel visioning on, I don't know what, a Beseiju and then going for Valakut
Mm-hmm.
and like didn't even occur. Oh yeah, like just go for the classic Simic Teleria West and then double swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So definitely missed that. There was just a lot I missed
Yeah. I
in
think,
this particular game.
like I said, I think, I mean, you can see the line once it's sort of like sequenced out. I think it's just sort of finding, you got to develop sort of the heuristic background, the little like mental tricks and the mental shortcuts, because like there's no, like, I think about it a little bit like chess, in some sense of like, in chess, a lot of people who don't play chess think like chess players see every move, 3, 5, 10 moves in advance, and you can't calculate every move. Like there's just like, it's exponential growth. You start to go even 3, 4 moves into the future, the amount of possible moves becomes impossible for anybody to even possibly calculate. But what you do is you narrow the search down to sort of some reasonable moves based on heuristics, based on background, based on, sort of prior knowledge and experience with the deck, right? So it's like you want to break this down into, so that's what I'm saying is like, we need to work on breaking this down into what are your heuristics, what are your intuition, what are the things that you should be doing to narrow down the amount of information you're considering and calculating to figure out the next move. And the way that you can narrow that information, like I said, is just like count the mana, check the colors, then look for the small optimizations.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hit play and let's see how the rest of the game goes from here. I'm guessing probably what happened in game is you just forgot, like you were saying, you probably just forgot about the ability to transmute for EE.
Yeah, it took me way too long to realize.
Yeah.
Eventually it hit me because the damage started coming in and I'm like, okay, I can't just sit here and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they have so many top decks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe out of desperation, I
I
finally
think
learned
I
to
also
realize that.
noticed with your blocking there, you blocked once again. You blocked a
Yeah,
one power creature over a two power
instead of a
creature.
2/2.
And it looks like here you make the play that we were discussing last turn.
Yeah, I think what, like 2 turns too late, and then they don't even.
Yeah.
I guess they're disgusted. They're like, okay, that's enough.
Well, I think they probably recognize that if you're producing this much mana, you're probably casting a Primeval Titan.
That's assuming a lot, though. Like, people shouldn't do that, but
No, absolutely they should not. But I'm just saying that I definitely have had people playing against Amulet when they see enough mana floated, they just concede the game.
yeah, that's fair.
Um, I've never actually tried just floating a bunch of mana against an opponent just to see if it would make them concede, but
Oh, that's
um,
dirty.
but
It would probably get you a few wins here and there once in a while.
yeah, I feel like it would also waste a lot of time.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
and I don't think it would get me a lot of wins that matter, right? It might get me with some wins in some leagues where people are valuing their time, more seriously. It's not going to get me wins, in a winning in for a top 8 of a tournament or something,
No,
So, uh, you know,
what's this game? I think
okay,
I think this ends up being create some sort of creativity thing or Archon deck.
let's do the middle button until we can see the opening here. I'm also gonna do a quick split here. I'm gonna stop the video and then I'll start us
Okay.
up a second video. So.